Let's talk about some roster transactions that the Chiefs made today as of Saturday, August 27th, and then take a look at what I believe the Chiefs' 53-man roster will most likely look like as of this Tuesday's deadline. But first, how about those? What's up, guys? My name is Cole, aka the riveting rosy red-bearded bastion of bravery and benevolence, or sometimes simply known as Judge Redbeard, and I do daily news about the Kansas City Chiefs, so definitely make sure to sub if you're new, hit that like button if Kansas City barbecue is the greatest barbecue on the face of this planet, and there's no debate. And let's get into this 53-man roster projection because preseason is now over and cuts are already happening. As I was prepping this video today, the Chiefs released offensive tackle Roderick Johnson and then waived QB Dustin Crum, running back Tayon Fleet-Davis, wide receiver Aaron Parker, and linebacker Mike Rose. And that brings the roster down from 80 to 75, with 22 more moves needing to be made by Tuesday. So in light of that, here's who I predict is going to make it from each position group as things stand right now. But before I do, I think the Dolphins should seriously consider picking up Dustin Crum, as he might be better than Tua turn the ball over, even though that man is the most accurate QB in the history of the entire NFL. Anyway, enough of that silly little man. Here we go. Starting with quarterbacks. Right now, I think it's 2. That might be a minority opinion right now, but 2. Patrick Mahomes and Chad Henne. Some do argue, though, that Shane Buechele has earned a spot on the roster based on his preseason performance, and that idea is not out of the question. Both Charles Goldman of Chiefs Wire and Pete Sweeney of Arrowhead Pride had Buechele on their 53-man roster projections, which is valid. I, however, am going to say the Chiefs are going with 2, attempting to hide Shane Buechele on the practice squad for now. But hey, if the Chiefs see that much value in Buechele, like next year he's going to be their go-to guy value, then you never know, they may indeed get this man on the active roster so they do not risk losing him. For running backs, I'm saying the Chiefs keep 4, CEH, Jerick McKinnon, Isaiah Pacheco, and then Ronald Jones. That's right, Rojo is someone that Sweeney and Goldman both don't think make the roster, but I'm a tad bit nervous about the injury history of CEH and McKinnon, and Rojo making the roster wouldn't completely blow my mind. He performed pretty well against the Packers. However, when Andy Reid was asked about Rojo's performance after last Thursday's game against the Packers, he said,
I thought Rojo ran hard. He had good vision. Shoot, I didn't think he did anything to hurt himself in our eyes, or whatever happens to him down the road here. So, but I thought he did a nice job for us. Yeah.
And the way he talks does make it seem like Rojo could be going somewhere else with his down the road comment. So I don't know. Ronald Jones carried the ball 8 times for 43 yards, averaging 5.4 yards per carry. So I personally would like to see him stay, but hey, if the Chiefs attempt to trade him, whatever, so be it. I do have faith in Pacheco's uprising and just hope CEH and McKinnon stay healthy. There is also the possibility that Derek Gore re-signs to the practice squad later once his broken thumb heals up, as the Chiefs did reach an injury settlement with him and officially released him yesterday. So yeah, he is officially a free agent, but if he ends up re-signing back to the practice squad, I would feel better about the Chiefs keeping 3 and letting Rojo go. But as of right now, I have them keeping 4 and also fullback Michael Burton on top of that, so 5. For wide receivers, I have the Chiefs keeping 6, starting with Juju Smith-Schuster, whose contract the Chiefs just amended. Listen to this per Field Yates. The Chiefs agreed to an amended contract for wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster that increases his per-game roster bonus from $30,000 to $60,000 per source. Smith-Schuster can now earn an extra $510,000, that's pocket change, via per-game bonuses this year. Nice touch by the Chiefs to give him a chance for more upside. So that's cool, I guess. Just wanted to throw that out there. So the first guy that is making the roster, Juju Smith-Schuster, then MVS, Mecole Hardman, Sky Moore, Justin Watson, and DeRuse Fountain. I think that Watson has earned his spot on the roster after the second preseason game against the Washington Redbeards pretty clearly. And then DeRuse Fountain just keeps playing pretty solid, to be honest, for wide receiver 6. He had 2 catches for 36 yards against the Packers, which led all receivers that night. And while I do think Fountain is the guy who is the perceived to be wide receiver 6, a dark horse for me is wide receiver Corey Coleman. Hear me out for a moment here. I think he played well enough out there to be the next man up and could also be the man returning kicks and punts for the team. If he did that, he would preserve both the bodies of wide receiver Sky Moore and running back Isaiah Pacheco, who I think both will be looked at by the team to contribute more heavily on offense as the season goes on. So if you had a decent wide receiver 6 that could contribute on offense, we've seen Corey Coleman do that, but is also a very valuable special teams returner, he could maybe edge DeRuse Fountain out, though I'm not sure Corey Coleman did quite enough. I also do want to note that obviously Fountain will be playing a pretty big role on special teams as well. So I think Uncle Dave will ultimately have say here for wide receiver 6, in my bearded opinion. So you have Juju, MVS, McCole, Sky, Justin Watson, and DeRuse Fountain as the 6 at the moment, though I do think the Chiefs may try to re-sign Coleman to the practice squad as well as Cornell Powell. And sadly, I think Josh Gordon's time in KC may be coming to a close, though crazier things have happened. He may end up on the practice squad as well. Not entirely sure there. If we look at the tight end situation, it's interesting because of Blake Bell's injury, but the Chiefs haven't yet moved him to IR or he would be out for the season. So they will more than likely keep Bell on the 53, then move him to IR where he could later return in the season. But again, they have to keep him on the roster prior to doing so. So I think the Chiefs will roll with 4 tight ends: Travis Kelce, Blake Bell, Noah Gray, and Jody Fortson. Thursday's night standout tight end Matt Bushman sadly broke his clavicle and is out for like a couple months, but could possibly find himself on the practice squad later this year after he heals up, similar to the Derek Gore situation. And as far as offensive linemen go, you have the starting 5, of course: left tackle Orlando Brown Jr., left guard Joe Thuney, center Creed Humphrey, right guard Trey Smith, and right tackle Andrew freaking Wiley. And then I think from there, it's going to most likely be Jerron Christian, Nick Allegretti, Prince Tega Winoco, and Austin Ryder, totaling the defensive lineman tally to 9 for right now. I do not think the rookie Darian Kennard did enough to make the roster, though of course he could always sneak in there, but I think the more likely scenario as of right now is that he gets re-signed to the practice squad. He just has not shown enough promise yet to make the leap over any of those other 4 depth players I mentioned after the starters. I do hope the Chiefs keep their eyes open on other teams though as cuts happen, as we could maybe see them trying to pick up another tackle potentially from those cuts. We also can't forget that Lucas Niang is on the PUP list and could return after week 4. So if he's healthy, that's another viable option potentially as well. Next up, let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. After a word from my sponsor, Let's Freaking Go, which is actually not a sponsor, but just a plug to my bearded merch. There's t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, coffee, tumblers, and more. And this is one way you can support the channel and at the same time earn something back in return. But guess what? If you don't want anything at all and don't ever purchase anything, that's okay. I will not hate you more than a little. All right, enough of that. Now for the defensive side of the ball. I think the Chiefs are keeping 5 defensive ends: Frank Clark, Furious George Karlaftis, Carlos Dunlap, Mike Dana, and Malik Herring, with Joshua Kando and possibly Azur Kamara on the practice squad. The thing that makes me nervous right now about this position group is Carlos Dunlap's inflamed Achilles. So we'll definitely have to keep our eyes on that, as hopefully it's just minor, but something to monitor. And another hiccup here is Malik Herring suffered an oblique strain during the Packers game on Thursday, and I have no clue the severity of that at the moment. I just think that Kando and Herring are pretty close in the battle, but from what I saw out there, Herring has edged him out in my opinion. But again, if that injury is serious enough, I can see Kando sliding in. Instead, I see whichever of those 2 does not make it to the active roster makes the practice squad, gets re-signed there. And I mentioned Azur Kamara on the practice squad as well because I do believe he's shown promise throughout the preseason as well. Now, for defensive tackles, I think the Chiefs keep 5. Chris Jones, Derek Nottie, Tershawn Wharton, Colin Saunders, and Danny Shelton, that small little man. I do think the late addition of Shelton does actually render Taylor Stallworth's services not needed. I'm not sure what they do with Stallworth, to be honest, at this point, because I think Colin Saunders played pretty well over the preseason and definitely earned a spot on this roster. I had Stallworth on the roster until the addition of Shelton, so I'm a bit confused on what to do with this man at the moment. I think we owe him some guaranteed money, so maybe the Chiefs try to trade him. Honestly, trade him for a good tackle. I don't know what they're going to do with him, but that's how it looks in my opinion as of right now at least. And for the linebacker unit, I have the Chiefs rolling with 5. Nick Bolton, Willie Gay, Elijah Lee, Leo Chanel, and Darius Harris. I think Harris more than earned his spot on the roster after the last preseason game with the Packers. He looked very good out there, including a series in which he made 3 tackles in a row. 2 of them were tackles for losses, I believe, though one of them was canceled out due to a penalty. But regardless, I think Darius Harris makes this roster. And then sadly, Jermaine Carter does not, even though the Chiefs owe him $1.7 million guaranteed. He's just too slow out there, in my opinion, and gives me PTSD of Anthony Hitchens out there running in slow motion. I think both Jack Cochran and Mike Rose could be re-signed to the practice squad, though I would not be surprised if at least one of them was signed by another team. And if we look at the cornerback room, I think it's pretty clear who the cornerbacks are. There's going to be 6 of them, in my opinion. L'Jarius Sneed, Trent McDuffie, Rashad Fenton, Joshua Williams, Jalen Watson, and then finally, Chris Lamons. I've been saying Lamons, but I think it's Lamons, so there you go. Joshua Williams had a bit of a rough game against the Packers, yes, but it's clear, as of right now, he's being seen as the team's 4th cornerback. And then Jalen Watson has played too freaking good this season to risk cutting and trying to re-sign to the practice squad. I honestly think if Watson was cut, he'd get scooped up. So they got to keep him. And Chris Lamons is one of Dave Toub's favorite special teamers, and he honestly had a pretty good showing out there at times on defense, getting scorched at other times a bit, but I think he did enough to stand out. And if the Chiefs don't believe that Lamons' court case to be a risk of a suspension this season, I think they're going to keep him. Najee Johnson and DiCaprio Bootle, I think are cut and potentially re-signed to the practice squad, though Bootle could potentially be a dark horse candidate to make the roster. I just think Lamons has it inked right now at the moment. Now onto the safety room. I think it's pretty clear the Chiefs will be keeping 4, with those 4 being Justin Reed, Juan Thornhill, Brian Cook, and then finally Deon Bush. I don't think Zane Anderson or Devon Key outplayed Bush, though Bush did have his not so good moments as well. If we're going to be honest, I do like Bush for that number 4 spot, however, as he will have a decent role on special teams also. Zane and Key may be the practice squad guys. We'll have to wait and see. And then for these specialists, there are 3. Kicker Harrison Butker, punter Tommy Townsend, and long snapper James Winchester. There's no competition here, and this is how things will definitely look there. But you cannot forget to mention that the Chiefs have a backup kicker and safety Justin Reed in case Butker ever goes down during a game. So that's nice, I guess, and at least worth mentioning. So there you have it for the 53-man roster. 2 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, a fullback, 6 receivers, 4 tight ends, 9 offensive linemen, 5 defensive tackles, 5 defensive ends, 5 linebackers, 6 corners, 4 safeties, 3 specialists, and a partridge in a freaking pear tree. Now, if you are smart, and I know you are, and you do the math, that's 54 people. The reason why is because somebody is going to get released and then brought back, in my opinion, once Blake Bell is placed on IR. So you have 54 people, somebody maybe like Danny Shelton, Austin Ryder, a vet like that, might get released before the Tuesday deadline, bringing them down to 53 people. But then when they move Blake Bell to IR, I think they're going to bring one of those people back, so they bring it back up to 53 total. Now, if they actually decide to bring in a blocking tight end in Blake Bell's stead, we're probably going to see something like 4 defensive tackles instead of 5. But anyway, if you actually sat there and did the math and you're like, why the heck is there 54? It's because of the Blake Bell situation. It just makes things a little bit complicated because he's moving to IR right after they get the roster down to 53. There's also the possibility that some minor shuffling happens after the Chiefs search around the league for others who were cut from opposing teams. Things will remain a bit fluid, but for right now, there's my thoughts and where they lie prior to the 53-man deadline this upcoming Tuesday. Can you guys do me a favor? Let me know what you think of this and let me know where you disagree. Most of you really like to let me know where you disagree in my videos, so you'll probably have no problem with that, but I encourage you to do so. Who do you think is making this roster that I left out? Let me know all that good stuff in the comments down below. And let's throw haymakers down there per usual. And I got to take a second here to give some shout outs to Chiefs fan for life, Tommy Watson, Rhonda Shepard, Sean Klein with the freaking 50 bomb red, and War Raw 1 for their recent super thanks comments. So I appreciate every single one of you. I always see those, and that means a lot to me and my family. So again, appreciate all of y'all. You freaking legends. Make sure to leave a super thanks or a bearded comment to potentially be featured in an upcoming vid, sub, like, blah, 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 and then check out this video here, which is from the Scrambling Armchair on 5 thoughts about Jody Fortson. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?